I sat down one-on-one Wednesday with Senator James Lankford for a wide-ranging discussion on the war in Iran and some developments here at home. Senator James Lankford, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks.
Always nice talking to you. I want to start with Iran. I wanted to start with your reaction. There was a new Ipsos Reuters poll that came out that said 66% of Americans want an end to the war in Iran, even if it means we do not achieve all of the president's objectives. Only 27% said that we should stay to make sure we finish that mission. And that's something I know you have cautioned against, not finishing the mission here. Why is that?
Once you're in it, you better finish it or it gets much worse. And that's the hardest part about this. Is this has been brewing for 47 years now, that Iran has been just picking at America from the beginning, from the hostage crisis in 1979 to the bombing of the Marine barracks in Beirut, to numerous terrorist attacks between then during the war with Iraq. It was Iranian Shia militants that actually trained people on how to kill Americans in Iraq. We had around 600 Americans killed directly by Iranians. The Houthis attacking our ships. Just in the last 4 years prior to this, in the last 4 years, Iran and its proxies have attacked America more than 200 times.
Right.
It just happens so often, we lose track of it. And what's happened now is the president's pushed back to say this has to stop. He's been clear that he also wants to get out of this. He does not want to remain in there. This is not about occupation. This is about making a terrorist regime that's been attacking Americans for decades now stop attacking us.
So when you say finishing the job, I know what you mean by that. I take your point. My question is for you, what does finishing the job, how do we know that this is a good outcome for the United States?
Yeah, you never really know until the end. I'm not expecting a Jeffersonian democracy to break out into Iran in the days ahead. It'd be great for the people of Iran. Quite frankly, they live under the oppression of this regime like the entire region is. I think the key aspects of it, no nuclear weapons program. That's got to be clear, and it's got to be certifiable. That means we've got to have inspectors go in to make sure that doesn't actually happen. So no nuclear weapons program, no ballistic missile program to be able to create something to be able to fire a nuclear weapon, which has really been their target to be able to do that. Downgrading of their support for terrorism through the region. That's taking away the financing from Hezbollah, from the Houthis, from Hamas, all these Shia militants that are in Iraq, actually getting dollars to their own people, not to acts of terrorism, and reopening the Strait of Hormuz.
Well, that's obviously a big one. On that last one, because that's it, I hadn't specifically thought about that one before, the taking away the financial capabilities. In a military campaign like this, is that something that can be achieved?
It can be achieved because it can be verified. I mean, we can track the dollars as they move, and we can track money as it moves internationally. That's the most famous statement of everybody, follow the money, and you'll know where they're going on this. But it's tracking the regime, where they're putting their money out there. That makes a big difference. That has to stop. When we were able to put pressure on them before to be able to stop the flow of money into Hezbollah, for instance, Hezbollah had to be able to back out. They couldn't carry out their acts of terrorism.
So say the same type of regime, I know that we've killed many of their leaders. Say the same type of regime remains in power in Iran. Is this an Iran that we can trust, no matter what happens? Is this an Iran that we can trust and work with moving forward?
Yeah, you never really know until it happens. You try to put the best conditions in place for the people of Iran to be able to choose the leadership there. Our beef is not with the people of Iran. There are many Iranians that live here in Oklahoma that fled from all of that tyranny decades ago. They're great people. The issue is not the people of Iran. It's a regime that wants to kill their own people, oppress their own people, and to be able to kill those folks around them. Remember, the Iranians hate the folks in the UAE and in Saudi Arabia and so many in the region. They're also dealing with this. We have military bases in Bahrain and Saudi Arabia and UAE and other locations because of Iran and the threats to Iran. If we could ever have it where we don't have a hostile regime that's there, that greatly diminishes the American footprint in that area. Those will still be allies and people that we'll do business with on it, but it greatly diminishes the need to have American forces in that region all the time if we don't have a hostile Iran.
A little bit more on this. I know we have big developments this week in DHS, so I want to talk about that. But obviously, anytime you have a military action like this, there's a great cost to it. The dollars and cents of it, obviously, it costs a lot of money. And blood, the loss of life. We've seen higher prices with gasoline, with some other materials and stuff like that. The markets have been greatly affected, the bond markets, lending markets, and stuff like that. I know that some people would talk about, this is just raising tensions with our allies, it's disrupting the region. Say we get everything that we want in Iran. Does the end, in that case, justify the cost?
Oh, yeah, tremendously. Again, we just don't realize as Americans, and for most Americans have lived with a crazy terrorist regime that is overthrowing and then controlling Iran. We're used to it. Again, 47 years this has been going on, so we've just become accustomed to it. If that ends, Iran is the great destabilizer of the Middle East. The Emiratis are our allies. The Saudis are our allies. We've got a lot of allies in that region that have been developed over the past decades on this, where we're doing business, doing engagement. The Emiratis are trying to do a huge investment into Oklahoma right now, with a giant investment of a aluminum smeltering facility to be able to produce aluminum here in the United States. The Emiratis are actually the one putting the money up. We have allies in the region, especially Israel. Think of how different things would be if you don't have a destabilizing regime in the middle of that, for both our investment in the region and the ability to be able to do business in the region. So it would be a tremendous gain for our kids and grandkids, and I have to live in fear of a nuclear armed Iranian regime there that's the largest state sponsor of terrorism in the world.
Let's turn now to the Department of Homeland Security. An agreement reached as we are talking here today on Wednesday afternoon. The House Speaker announcing that it looks like they will be stepping in and following the Senate plan, from what I could tell, basically as it was written.
It is, exactly.
To fund DHS. What's your reaction to this?
Oh, great. Let's get this on. I'm a firm believer we should never have government shutdowns, period. We've
talked about that.
And I'm continuing to be able to press this. I have a Democratic senator named Maggie Hassan. She's a Democrat senator from New Hampshire. She and I have worked for years to be able to say, where can we find common ground to end government shutdowns, where when we get to one of these moments like this, Congress stays in session 7 days a week. No one goes home. Everybody stays there and works on it. But federal workers and programs, they're held harmless. They still get a check. They're still able to operate. We're the ones that get the pressure on us. That's a better way to be able to operate this, rather than the pressure to be a TSA worker. That's ridiculous, to be able to have that. So long term, we've got to solve this. My focus is, as soon as we get shutdown finished, we turn towards ending shutdowns forever to be able to resolve that. In the short term, what the Senate created was a moment to say we can fully fund DHS doing two things. Last summer in the One Big Beautiful Bill, we knew this was going to be a fight. We already understood there was a lot of my Democratic colleagues that do not like President Trump and his plans for the border, so they weren't going to fund ICE and CBP. We knew that, so we forward funded, we pre-funded ICE and CBP in the One Big Beautiful Bill for all 4 years.
Right.
We're now carrying that plan out and saying, use that pre-funding that we already set aside for the next 4 years, fund the rest of DHS, and let's get this done.
So is that through, and I'm going to ask for your help explaining this to me, because part of the Speaker's statement said that they would be fully funding the entire DHS on two parallel tracks, through appropriations and through reconciliation.
That's correct. That's correct.
Put that into English there for our viewers, and for me, if we're being honest.
It is a challenge to be able to track all the legislative vehicles that are out there to be able to do something. So appropriations has to have 60 votes in the Senate and a majority of votes in the House to be able to move appropriations. That's the normal funding process that would go through. There's 12 appropriation bills to fund everything in government. 11 of those 12 have been done for months. The one that's been undone is DHS. So this last piece appropriates, finishes all that process with 60 votes in the Senate, a majority of votes in the House, President's signature. The next stage on that is like what we did in the One Big Beautiful Bill. That's a reconciliation bill. That only takes 51 votes, but it can only be very narrow budget items. So there are a few tax items, a few budget items that can be done. You can't do big policy like we do in other bills that require 60 votes in the Senate. It has to be narrow. We can future fund, not change how the funding is used, but future fund with just reconciliation. So the Speaker came out and said, let's do the appropriations as we've agreed. The Senate plan, let's also pass that in the House. President's already said he wants to sign that. And then let's do another reconciliation, like what we did in the One Big Beautiful Bill. This one's smaller. This one just, again, on issues about ICE and CBP, to narrowly focus just funding in those areas, to add additional funds, even more than what we did during the One Big Beautiful Bill, to make sure that we're never in a fight like this again.
All right. While I got you here, we got about a minute left. Let me ask you just a couple things. A rapid fire, if you want. You were with Kash Patel, right? The FBI director this week, talking about the McGirt decision, the FBI working together. Why is that so important right now?
Oh, incredibly important, because if we're going to have the application of justice here, we've got to have more federal authorities to be able to do that. If it's in the reservation area, it's in a tribal area, according to the McGirt decision, that is now a U.S. attorney that has to do the prosecution on that, not a district attorney. That has to be the FBI doing the investigation. And so it's important that we get FBI leadership together with our tribal leadership to say, where do we have gaps? Where do we not have prosecutions? We should have an equal application of the law in Oklahoma. That's going to take a lot more coordination to be able to do that. So to have Cash Patel here, meeting with tribal leaders, meeting with state law enforcement as well, very important. It was very helpful. I was in all those meetings, extremely productive.
Very productive.
Very.
All right, last thing, birthright citizenship went before the U.S. Supreme Court. They started taking the oral arguments here today as we're speaking. Do you have a strong opinion on that either way?
I can't tell which way the Supreme Court's going to go. No one's going to guess them on that. I'm one of those folks that say I don't believe that when the 14th Amendment was written, it really was referring to the children of slaves. That was the time period. That was what they're referring to. It's already been very clear as well. For instance, a child of a diplomat, if a diplomat from another country has a child in America, they're not an American citizen because of who their parents are. That's already established law. If you have a foreign army that's come in, it's already established law, and they have a child, that child is not a citizen. It's based on your parents and what their position are. That was the argument before them, that I also believe that the intent was about children of slaves, not about someone who illegally came into the country and then had a child. We'll see where the Supreme Court goes on this.
Do you think if they follow your line of thinking right there, do you think that it would be disruptive in this country?
I think what they would do...
That's millions of people.
Well, I think the Supreme Court, I think they would never go retroactive. I can't imagine this Supreme Court would go retroactive. Everyone who was born here that thinks they're a citizen but they're now not, I would never see them do that. I would see them say from this day forward, this is the application. They would say this was the understanding at this point, now this is the understanding now of what it is. That's something the Supreme Court has done in the past, to be able to say retroactive doesn't count on it, but proactive, looking forward, we're going to have an application of the law that's consistent with how the 14th Amendment was written. Now, again, lots of people, even people watching the show, are going to disagree with me on that. We'll see where the Supreme Court comes down on that. I am like other Americans. I honor the decision of the courts. We agree, disagree, but they settle what the law says. And so I'm going to move forward with that regardless of how they decide.
We'll agree or disagree. I'm honored to have you on the program. It's always nice talking to you, Senator.
Thanks. Good to visit with you again, Ed.
Thank you.